the 1,006 alleged perpetrators of child sexual abuse identified by the Jehovah's Witness Church since 1950, not one was reported by the Church to secular authorities.
And would you do the same thing today if someone came and reported to you a serious allegation of sexual assault? Would you destroy any notes?
Yes, that's our practice.
You took, as I understand it, but correct me if I'm wrong, that would have been the right thing for him to do, to go back to the home.
Because his wife, according to that, was still wanting him to come back to the marriage.
Yes.
Yes, if he had.
And that would have put him back at the home, in the home with his, still with his two youngest daughters.
It would have.
Which would not have been a safe situation, would it? That would not have been a safe situation, would it? In view of what you knew about him and his elder daughters.
That sounds correct.
You see, there's no mention here.
To take the most extreme murder, if you were told that a member of the congregation had killed someone else, would you report that to the police?
We would encourage the person to do that.
Would you do it yourself?
No, I would try very hard not to. Not that I would try very hard not to, but I would encourage the person continually to do that. That's a decision that they need to make.
Well, what if the person wasn't prepared to go to the police, but they told you that they saw the killing happen? What would you do?
Am I being asked on the present day circumstances?
Yeah.
Yes. I would take the action of ringing the branch and getting some legal advice on that.
Do you have any knowledge? You're living in Queensland, aren't you?
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge of the law or legal obligations to report knowledge of crimes at all?
Not really, no.
So if you're not satisfied that this person will not offend again, then you won't reprove. You'll disfellowship.
Yes.
And when the person's disfellowshipped, they then can still attend meetings and so on, but under some restriction, is that right?
Under a lot of restrictions.
Yes. And members of the congregation cannot associate with them socially.
Socially or spiritually.
Yes. But the person is still otherwise in the world and can associate with people outside of the church.
Yes.
And you don't take into consideration, do you, how people outside of the church might be kept safe from such a person whom you're not satisfied will not reoffend?
If they were outside the church and they were a close friend, I would tell them.
Well, and how would you know if they're a close friend and they're outside of the church?
No, if they were a close friend of mine.
A close friend of yours?
If I was.
Yes.
If I associated with them.
Well, what about people who are not close friends of yours, others than outside of the church? You don't take any steps, do you, to protect them from this potential reoffending? You don't, do you? You're concerned with the congregation principally, aren't you?
We're concerned with the congregations. We are shepherds of the congregation.
Yes, and you're not a shepherd to those who are not in the congregation.
No.
And as an organisation, in your experience, you don't seek to protect or take care of children who are outside of the congregation.
That's a broad statement.
Well, I can limit it.
Yeah, limit it,
In
please.
your decision on whether or not to disfellowship someone, you don't take consideration of children outside of the congregation.
Do take consideration of them, but what ability have we got to protect every child in Australia?
Well, what you can do is you can report to the child protection authorities.
And that is done in some cases.
But generally it's not done, is it?
No.
It's not done unless there's a legal requirement for it to be done, is there?
That is true.
Now, the consequence in the scenario that I put to you is that this survivor of abuse who wishes to leave the organisation is put to a choice, isn't she? She either stays in the organisation or she leaves and thereby potentially loses her whole family, or much of it, depending on how many remain in the witnesses, and her social network.
No, I think there's that other option that you missed there is by just ceasing her activity in the congregation.
Well, I'm presupposing, Mr. O'Brien, that her feeling is sufficiently intense that she wishes to disassociate from the organisation.
Yes, so then she would appreciate the implication of that.
Yes, and her friends and family would face the implication too that they would have to disassociate from her.
Yes.
It's an impossible choice, isn't it? I mean, no one, is it not right, Mr. O'Brien, should be put to the choice of remaining in an organisation which she feels is protective of her abuser and losing her family and social network.
Well, I can only be guided by what the scriptures say on that.
Well, do you accept that it's psychologically devastating and cruel?
The whole purpose of disfellowshipping or disassociation is to help the person see the benefits of associating. So a disassociated person, a disfellowshipped person, is free to come back. A disassociated person particularly, they don't have to go through a lengthy procedure to come back, whereas a disfellowshipped person has to prove their repentance suitably.
Well, it makes your organisation a captive organisation, doesn't it?
I don't follow what you mean by that.
Well, it makes it incredibly hard for someone to leave because of the huge pain, suffering, cruelty that she must face if she does leave.
I don't believe so.
Do you appreciate, Mr. O'Brien, that this point of shunning, as it's called, is the one that probably makes people the most angry around the world amongst the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses?
But if it's disassociation, again, it's a choice they make. They don't have to disassociate themselves to stop associating. They don't lose their spiritual or familial association by being inactive.
I can see you might get some support for it by the manner in which first century Christians organized themselves. But is it justified in today's world and today's morality to treat people in this way?
Well, personally, what is accepted as today's morality in many ways, I wouldn't say is acceptable to a Christian.
You accept that the Jehovah's Witness organization has a problem with child abuse amongst its members?
I accept that child abuse is a problem right throughout the community, and it's something that we've had to deal with as well.
Do you accept that the manner in which your organization has dealt with allegations of child sexual abuse has also presented problems?
By the fact that we've changed the policy would indicate that the original policies weren't perfect.
Your organization, including people in positions of responsibility like elders, are not immune from the problem of child sexual abuse?
That appears to be the case.